Hey, welcome back to the Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Before we jump into today's topic, I just want to take a minute to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of law can scale without losing its heart. If you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals, check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you. Today's guest is a repeat guest, and she's really well known in legal. I wanted to have her on again because there's been some updates I wanted to bring to the people. Jen Gore, what's going on?
Hey, how are you? Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. And the name of your company is Evergreen Business Coaching, correct? I get that right?
Yep.
All right.
That's it. That's the name. I'm kind of like trying to shorten it. So I'm like, do I just go by Evergreen?
I like it. I mean, look, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is you're the consummate entrepreneur. So I've been following you for a while. I had you on before. We talked about your existing personal injury practice, which was Atlanta Personal Injury Group, was fast growing. You had all of the components built out. Then you get bought out. You were, I think, one of the first acquisition merger type scenarios that happened with Sweet James, right, out of California. They came into Georgia. And then I saw an announcement recently that there was a full buyout, right? Am I getting that right?
Yes.
Full buyout of your interest, and that you were moving into the law firm business coaching space, correct?
Yeah, but it's kind of a misnomer because I started Evergreen in 2023. The name is actually an homage to my old firm, Atlanta Personal Injury, which was the green brand, So I used to have Atlanta Personal Injury and Evergreen, and I was coaching about 15 firms around the country since 2023.
Oh, okay.
But it was more of a hobby, passion project, meaning like I hadn't really created a huge business around it, but it was more growing through word of mouth. And if I'm really honest, I really wanted to start my consulting business probably in 2020, even maybe 2019, because I remember I was in a coaching program and I had gone to one of my mentors and said I really think I want to do consulting. And they had convinced me not to do it. And so it's kind of interesting if you look back as to how I'm here doing this now full time and how long it kind of took me to really fully step into what I really love to do.
That's a great segue for my next question, which is, when did you first realize that practicing law might not be the forever path?
Well, I want to just be so transparent on this. I, as you know, stopped having a caseload 7 years ago. I mean, certainly when you own a law firm, you have to step into the caseload from time to time if you're short-staffed, right? But I didn't, for all intents and purposes, have a caseload for the last 7 years. And I was managing the firm and running the firm and doing operations. And obviously, you're going to be doing a little bit of everything when you're in that role. But personally, it was not satisfying for me in the last 7 years to have my day-to-day be running a caseload.
Correct. Really, where you were stepping away from private practice of law, right? There was at some point you had the epiphany or realization, this is not my forever path, right?
What I would say is when I first was approached by Sweet James to sell my firm, the vision was to become a part of a larger firm and to join that mission and to learn from a larger firm and to, get the experience of being a partner in a 500-person firm. My mentality is very growth oriented, so that was very enticing and appealing. So, the initial conversation was not to just sell my firm and stop owning a law firm. I don't even know, had that been presented to me, would it have been an option I would have taken? At the time, the idea was I can keep growing this slowly. I mean, 30, 40, 50% a year, which to me it was slow. I wanted to build a much larger firm and to grow the business and to be, a top contender in the Atlanta market. So I saw the partnership with Sweet James as an opportunity to kind of catapult the growth of Atlanta Personal Injury. And then through, the experience of merging in with Sweet James, which was, difficult. Like, let's just be honest, taking a firm and a culture and merging it into another firm, it comes with a lot of complexity. And even though I did think that Sweet James had a lot of qualities that were very similar to Atlanta Personal Injury, they are two different firms and two different cultures and two different speeds. And so the task of merging a company, if anyone has gone through it, it's not just simple or easy.
Right. And I'm smirking because we're in the middle of what I'm calling the gold rush, right? Like, I spoke to an advisor yesterday. I go, man, everything's moving so fast, but equally as fast as you're seeing the complexities unfold at scale, right? And it is challenging. So you joined Sweet James, you were there for about a year, right? Or was it 2 years?
Yeah, I was there for a year, and through, a series of conversations and events, the firm was making some changes and restructuring, and there's a lot of complicated things happening right now in the market, including massive tort reform in California.
And New York. It's coming to New York.
And now New York. And so there's a lot of decisions that have to be made that, a year prior, different information is available, right? So what the thought was of what the nature of the market was a year ago versus in 2026 is a lot of things have changed. And so just to put it frankly, also, I felt that I could not really focus on my consulting business being a part of Sweet James. I had to really, in a way, put that on the side because my focus was to try to, go through this transition and this merger. In fact, I had a COO of Evergreen and she, quit because just candidly, it wasn't my primary focus. It was my passion project and my hobby. And although I had a COO and somebody trying to help me grow it, it just wasn't the top priority in 2025. So, that got kind of sidelined a bit in terms of we weren't trying to scale it or grow it aggressively. And, I wasn't super happy about that when I look back on it in hindsight. It felt like it was the right thing to do at the time, but realistically, it's my favorite thing. I love the consulting and that had to get kind of sidelined for a time.
So, yeah. And it seems like, we've talked offline before too. It seems like what you're doing now really energizes you. We've talked about it. The awesome thing is too, is you've got experience in the M&A space now where you said, quite frankly, I could probably act in an advisory capacity in that regard too, right?
Yeah. I'm giving a lot of advice to people who want to sell their firms. I get a lot of inquiries on that. And, at the end of the day, I'm 41. Life is short. And I think there's a lot of great quotes you've heard on this in the past. I think Steve Jobs said one, but it's if I'm getting up every day and I'm not loving what I'm doing, realistically, you need to reconsider. And I think when you get in the path of being a professional, a lawyer, you can kind of feel well, this is what I'm doing. Now look at me. I've sold my company, half of it, merged into another firm, became a partner in that firm, and now completely sold and exited and relaunched my consulting business. So I've been through a lot of changes that many people wouldn't do. I mean, it's a lot of change. It's a lot of brand shifting. It's an identity shift. I mean, packing up my office when I fully exited in February that I had for 13 years. I did a video where I posted
I saw it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
I mean, it was emotional. It's even though you want to do something and you're closing a door on a chapter, there's high emotions. If I said to you tomorrow, Tom, we're going to come in and pack up your office and we're going to give it to Bill, who's now going to have your office. And, think about the emotions to that.
No, look, it's significant, right? 13 years is not a short amount of time. I think that you're very courageous with the way no, I'm being serious. I think that the way you've been operating is A, you're an entrepreneur. B, you're very public in our world, right? And I have to qualify that because when I talk to people about legal influences, I'm it's a thing and it's real. right? But I think that you've been very public about it and unapologetic about it too, right? And I like that because you're not afraid to make bold moves. You're not afraid to pivot when pivot is needed. And you're guided by exactly what you just said, which is I actually espouse the same philosophy. Like, I'm 57, I'm much older than you. Life is just too short to be miserable. And how many lawyers do we know clocking in every day, miserable, complaining, but doing nothing about it? So like, I'm a big fan of anybody that takes action. I have a massive bias for action. And so what? Like, nobody knows what goes on behind the scenes. And if you're happy and you're smiling every day now, building out a consulting business, a coaching business, then that's where your pivot landed you. So I do think it's courageous what you're doing.
I think that people don't even give them the permission to imagine a life beyond where they are.
Right.
It feels like we take like the fact that I'm a lawyer and it's like, it's so prestigious. Like, this is what I have to do, right? If I could tell you what has happened since I've unfolded this consulting practice, first of all, I got 171 inquiries in the first week.
Wow.
So there's something about saying publicly, I'm doing this, which has a lot more energy than doing things behind the scenes.
Right.
I had multiple people reach out to me that are saying like, I've been following you for 4 years and now like, I want to work with you, like immediately, please just sign me up, like no sale required. I had a lot of people that had said like, I had reached out to you about coaching and you never got back to me. So I apparently had missed some of those leads.
Right.
And so that's like the difference of doing something intentionally or not. And also a lot of my coaching clients, my business is kind of haphazard. Like, I didn't put systems in, I didn't have like automated scheduling. And so like when I made it a business, suddenly it got like structure and systems around it. And it became a better client experience for all the people I was coaching.
Right.
My schedule was further planned out. I was more intentional. I gave them a lot of the service that they were asking for because I was like really paying attention. And now I get to kind of work on my own schedule. I could be doing this podcast or coaching from Paris if I so chose. I have total freedom and autonomy of my schedule. And my creativity is so much more tapped in right now because instead of spending all of my day working with employees in a personal injury firm or, lawyers in a personal injury firm, which is what the bulk of my day involved, I'm spending all of my days talking to entrepreneurial lawyers and people like you and marketing people and creating strategic partnerships, which is much more invigorating to me. And I kind of got to this point where it's like, if I never talk about a back surgery again, it's too soon.
Right.
Like, I talked about it enough in
Yeah.
my videos. When you get to the point where you're like, I don't really know if I have anything else I want to say on this subject.
Right. Well, look, I think that when I say you're courageous in the way you approach this, I don't want to, underplay that for you. And I'll tell you why. The number of people that will listen to this with envy that you actually made a bold move. Like, listen, I have a hard line. If I ever have to touch a file again in any capacity, I would have retired 10 years ago. Like, I didn't need to keep doing this. I just love what I'm doing the way I'm doing it. I'm not going to do stuff I don't want to do. Period. Hard stop. The number of people that will listen to this with a thread of envy in them for the move that you made that they feel they cannot make is, I'm telling you, it's not minor. More lawyers are doing what they're doing miserable. Just go on Reddit. Just go on Reddit if you really want to know how lawyers feel about lawyering. And so it was courageous to the extent that you did what 99% won't. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, Tom. Like, I don't know how many people are entrepreneurial. Like, there may be some lawyers, and I meet a lot of lawyers that they truly love. Like, they'll say, I come alive doing trial. And like, they should continue doing
Correct.
that if that's their path. I'm just saying my path, and you're very much more entrepreneurial. I was finding like the business side was more invigorating, and being able to work with lawyers around the country and help them transform their practice. I still feel I'm using my law degree to an extent because it gives me the credibility of like, I did all of what I'm telling you to do.
Right.
But I found that just like there's people that have amazing skill sets at being trial lawyers, I've spent 10 to 12 years investing in learning how to be a great operator. And I've been in every size firm. I've been in every size mastermind. I've been behind the scenes around a lot of companies and law firms. And through the acquiring of those, years of being in the trenches, I feel I have a very unique ability to look at someone's business and immediately figure out what the problems are. And I'm actually shocked 99% of the time that other people don't see what I see. And so now I'm trying to build a business that I can scale around me, because I don't want it to be where, we can only serve a few people because it's just my time. So I'm trying to figure out how to scale this now in a way that delivers value consistently, which is a whole new challenge. But I'm realizing on my day-to-day basis, sitting with law firm owners, there are many people that do not look at their business and see what I see.
Right. And so I was actually going to ask you the question, like, what do you think is the number one skill set or problem solving skill that you have? But it's actually probably what you just said, which is being able to identify, right, the number one problem within a business that's glaring that other people are missing. But again, it comes from, 15 years, I think you said, of being in the role that you were in, which is, that CEO role, that true entrepreneur role.
Yeah. I mean, I would say if you went on these calls with me, you would see it because you're kind of in the same seat. And I think I've always told you, I think you could do consulting as well. And your passion for business is obvious, but there are many people, they're not entrepreneur, they're not business minded, and they're in the position of running a firm. So I just really start with intake on most of the people that I'm meeting. And I will promise you that you will be shocked when, you talk to somebody and you get on the call with them and you say, how many cases have you signed up this month? And, invariably, 85% of the people can't answer that question. And I like to ask it unprompted, because if you can answer that question, that typically means you're looking at that information daily or weekly. That's a piece of information you should be looking at. And it's something that you're kind of have your pulse on as the owner of a law firm. And what I find a lot of is, I could probably figure that out. I could find that. I could run a report, but they don't have a sense of like that number as a pulse. And so that means that they're operating their business in a way where typically they don't know how many clients they've signed up at the end of the month. They don't know what their conversion rate is, or even what a qualified lead is, which on a very basic level is a very basic piece of information that you should know as the operator of any business, especially a law firm. So, what I mean, just for the people on the call who may be in that boat, is if you get 100 calls, do you know where all those calls came from? Number one, are you even tracking the calls or leads in your law firm? You should have a systematic way. And in my view, it's irresponsible to not have an intake system software. I hate manual intake. If you're manually entering a lead, there's a very high probability for human error.
Yep.
Meaning a portion of your leads never even get into your system.
Right.
So do you know how many leads come in? Do you know how many of them are qualified? Meaning you wanted to sign them up. And I see a big problem where a lot of people don't properly mark that. So do you know out of those 100, 60 were people you could have helped? And let's say you're signing only 50. My obsession as the owner of a law firm was sitting in those 10 that we didn't sign. And I'm sure you're the same.
I'm literally listening to you and I'm like, if people don't have this data, they cannot imagine the amount of money that they're losing.
Bernie.
But I will tell you this too. The numbers are staggering. So I recently, in the last 8 months, I hired 2 operators. And when I say operators, I wanted to replace myself in operations. So I went out and got me 25-year C-suite COO, and then I hired a DO beneath him, and then my management team, my leadership team.
Which is very pricey.
Very pricey. Very pricey. But
it's an investment.
But I will tell you this. Law firm owners that do own software, I can bet a $10,000 bet right now with anybody who wants to take the action that 90% of them are only using 10% of their tech capability, and they're not using it correctly. Because
Correct.
systems are supposed to work together from first call till death of a client.
Correct.
And they don't, unless you've
They
got hedge fund money behind you, or you're a crazy 57-year-old entrepreneur that says, this is my swan song scaling moment, and I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off and spend whatever it takes to build it the right way.
Yeah. And you have to be obsessed. You have to.
I'm obsessed.
This has to, like, when you see, like, I can feel the chills going through my body and like the fire and the pain. Like when I would see we did not convert 16 leads that we could have, it would actually make me feel anxious. Like I'm fired up.
Yeah.
If it doesn't do that to you, you're not going to be obsessed.
You're not in the business. You're not in the business. You're in a practice. You got a nice job. But when you quantify your average legal fee per file by that 16 lost opportunities, and you go,
it's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh my God. Now you just gave me chills thinking about it, because I'm like, I look at every lost opportunity that way.
But you and I know that when we tell this to people, I think they can follow it, but it's an execution game, because when you set up your system, number one, to get an advanced system, you need somebody that professionally builds this out.
Yes.
You can hire
say that again.
consultants.
Wait, time out. Say that again. Whether it's internal or external, say it again.
Yeah. Personally, you need somebody from the company typically to build it out. And then you need somebody within your company to maintain it, to keep it going. And the problem with a lot of these software companies, and I'm partnered with a lot of them, I've built out, like, I've even gone to them and said, take my system I built out and give it to my clients, right? So that's a new thing that I'm doing, because that process can be so difficult if you're a novice. But you have to sit there on the Zoom call with them and say, this is my intake script. Oh, I don't have an intake script. Company, help me. What do other people use? You have to sit there and engineer it and build it, and then test it, and then audit it. And if you're not willing to do that level of build out, the software is not worth the cost, in my opinion.
You won't be able to compete. Just for context, in doing this over 6 to 8 months, I've invested $300,000 roughly, and it took 6 to 8 months. So lest anybody thinking that it's going to be overnight, or it's going to be easy, or it's going to be none of those things. And if you're sub 1 million, sub 2 million, you may not have the resource to even do this.
No.
Like, that's a huge opportunity to say, oh my God, Jen is going to get my software vendor package completely pre-installed. That's a major, major get, because I just quantified it for people.
That being said, we know there's listeners on here that are sub 1 million.
Right.
I always say, I don't care where you start, just start somewhere.
Correct.
Yes, I want you to maximize it, but you're ahead of 50 to 60% of your competition, maybe even higher, if you just get an intake software and you have it working on a basic level.
Right.
I know we want to optimize and we want to be the best. And if you're in that category, you're leaps and bounds ahead of everyone and you're going to smoke everyone. But I'm just saying, just getting an intake software and not working off a scrap of paper and glue and, paper clips, you're already ahead of 60% of the market, because it's really, really bad. If I can give you my actual insights from the last month and a half that I've spent meeting new people, it's worse than I imagined.
It's worse
way worse than I imagined. I actually think now I was just winning by default, just by doing bare minimums.
I don't think you were doing bare minimums, though. You weren't doing bare minimums. Quick break to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is supported by Tona Law, a modern law firm built on integrity and innovation. Learn how they're changing the game at tonalaw.com. Attorney referrals accepted from across the country. You'll see what it's like when you send us a case. You'll have some happy clients. So, the way I see you right now, Jen, is your identity has always been an entrepreneur, and this is your highest iteration of that, right? Because sometimes I'm in my seat now and I'm like, there got to be more out there from the entrepreneurial side of what I'm doing. And I get those feelings and I talk about them candidly, because I'm still relatively young, 57-year-old, and I still like the challenge and the concept of building and scaling a business. But your identity in my mind was an entrepreneurial lawyer, not just a lawyer, right?
Correct.
And so now this is the highest level of that because you're growing entrepreneurs and you don't have the constraints of our ridiculous framework or that's archaic and hasn't been updated in hundreds of years because we're lawyers, right? Like you can't say certain things, you can't do certain things.
I'm unchained.
You're Jen Unchained.
It's so nice. I can cold call my potential law firm clients. I can harass them in ways I couldn't do as a lawyer for my clients. No, I feel more in integrity with my gifts of like, I was finding myself trying to coach people. When you have something that you love, you find yourself doing it in weird ways that are like, why am I doing this? I'm like trying to coach my personal injury clients on how to change their lives. Like, no, you got to see the writing on the wall. And personally, my satisfaction, you know how like sometimes when you own a law firm and you're so distanced from the legal work, like I would sometimes go in and kind of do it to get reinvigorated again.
I never do that. I never do that.
I would find that my content was better when I would go and like kind of sit in the managing attorney meetings and retouch the pain that are, that's the purpose of the work.
Right.
And now, like when I'm on coaching calls, I have unlimited content because I literally wrote 5 pages of content yesterday on all the videos I need to write just based off of one client call, because it is that concept that what you think, Tom, like you think this is obvious, it's not obvious to other people.
I know.
You think, oh, everyone gets I got to build out a massive intake system. I mean, I'm telling you, I was on a call last week with a client that's doing pretty well, $2 million. We go in their intake software, which it's not even real. And let me just say, if your intake software is in a CRM, which CRMs kind of have these hodgepodge, they're like kind of an intake software. That's not what we're talking about. Just so everyone knows, right? Like CRMs offering you an intake component is not what we're talking about. We're talking about software that's dedicated specifically built for intake. And I don't know what system you're on, Tom, but it usually migrates into your CRM from there, correct?
Correct. Then migrates from there into case management.
But we're not saying like some of the worst intake software is ones that are part of just a CRM. They just slapped it on, right?
Right.
So we go in there and I go, let's just look at what's going on in your intake. Let's share your screen. And we see like 16 cases declined. And I'm going, okay, can you like look in there? What's up? Paralegal writes, great case, told client, firm is too busy. We're not taking business at this time.
Oh my God.
You think this doesn't happen. It does.
No, I know it does. I'm
going, hold on. Can you read that again? What are you talking about? And then the owner was kind of like, oh, I didn't know this was happening, And it's like, think about how much money you spent on marketing to build your reputation, to get that phone to ring.
I mean, I'm obsessed about it. And I will tell you that my major obsession is intake and retention, right? Because if you're strong on intake and you're not auditing calls to listen to your team and see what the hell is going on, you're leaking money out the other side of the boat, right? And if you focus on nothing else, a lot of ills can be fixed by focusing on intake and retention. Right?
Yes.
You got to be obsessed about both. My newest obsession is that retention piece where I audited calls. Jen, as my therapist right now, I'm going to tell you a secret. I never recorded calls. I didn't have time. I didn't have framework for auditing. So even if I recorded them, I would turn it off. People were complaining. Finally, I said, we have to audit calls. I got to know what's going on. And I listened to somebody on the phone. Now, this is a hard-fought client. We win a client. We get the retainer. And I'm listening to somebody ridicule an injured person.
Oh, it's so upsetting.
So I fired that person on spot. There's a lot of things I will give a margin of error for. That kind of treatment will never be part of that matrix for me. And there are still people that don't audit calls. They don't have the framework you need enough people to assign that stuff to, right? So it's really challenging for small practices and it's only getting worse.
Auditing with AI is a lot easier now, but we were doing it with Zoom. Zoom phones can audit your calls and you can create certain keywords that if these things prompt up, then let us know. And those would be the ones we spot check. My feeling is if you don't have the time to do full audits, which most people don't, at least pull 10 files and spot check. That's what we started with back then. You got to have an office. Yeah. You
Yeah.
got to have
It's not a
somebody.
small investment of time. It's just not,
That's somebody operating at a high level, like you're saying, like somebody who even has the wherewithal that they should be auditing and they're doing some basic auditing or spot checking. That's actually at a high level. I'm seeing things even at a level where it's just every day is fires everywhere. There's no regular meeting cadence. You're kind of just fighting fires all day. And people will say, well, I meet with my team every day. Well, the whole point of having a meeting cadence is so you don't have to do that. I mean, I've been on calls with my team or my clients and I'll ask them for data. Like, hey, do you have this data? And they'll go pull people off out of their work day. Like, hey, get me this right now. Even right there, that tells me they're operating like a fire, right?
Right.
You can't be calling people around the clock as the owner. Get me this, get me that, give me that. Like now you're disrupting everyone.
Right. You're practicing like it was 1960. We're pressing the intercom to go get everything delivered to our desk versus like having it push button data,
Yeah. And also my biggest thing, if I could teach people one thing, is every day when you sit down at your desk, you should have dashboards that you sit down and you look at. That's how I operated for years. I just sit down and I'm looking at what's going on in intake land, what's going on in marketing land, what's going on in production land, and settlement and cash land. And when I scan my little kingdom, I'm like, what's up in these areas? I have a sense for what's going on in the business just by looking at that. I know this person's behind on production. This person's behind on this person's ahead. I'm not worried about this person over here. I know that we're going to hit our cash flow forecast or we're way off and I got to put some pressure. And that is how you have to operate on a day-to-day basis. You're driving a Ferrari. You have to look at the dashboard,
Yeah, I agree 100%. As a matter of fact, I was working on a CEO level dashboard that I want to see now versus what I used to have just last night, right? Like it's an ever evolving thing. As we're unfolding this, there's a lot of moving pieces, which is the biggest challenge for new lawyers starting out with practices. They are ambitious. They have no idea what they're getting themselves into trying to compete in personal injury right now, right? What's about to hit the market.
I have such a mixed view on this right now. I do feel private equity, is coming in and it's going to change the game and we have to all be ready to adapt to that. But I'm having a broader perspective now, coaching a ton of different firms and seeing inside the behind the scenes of many firms. And I just go back to my original thought, even who's your competitor, right, in your market. Like Tom, everybody has in their mind who their competitors are, right? I'm telling you, I'm looking behind the scenes in many firms. And if people could just focus on their own firm, I promise you're not losing because of your competitor. They probably have different marketing source, different referral partners. There's this feeling like I'm losing because of my competitor. It's not true. If I could leave one message here today, you're not losing because of your competitor. You're losing because of your shitty run law firm.
Your blind
shitty run
spots.
intake, your bad follow-up, your bad people you have managing your cases. Like if you could clean your own house and just get your house at 99%, the competitors are not, that's like a myth that we're really thinking.
I agree. You know what? As you're saying it, I'm thinking of something like the one thing I would leave listeners with is this. When you think you got it figured out, start going around your office and filling in different roles and see just how bad it is. Meaning, for years, you would delegate something to one person. You're like, I got this sewn up. This person's got it. They were doing X, Y, and Z. And then I sit in on those meetings and I go, oh my
boy.
What the hell is going on in my office right now?
Telephone, right? Because this switched. It got passed down and now it's completely being done differently than originally.
Yeah. Yeah. And then people are like, I got systems. But if you have systems and you don't have workflows that automate the system, You don't really have systems. No one's following them. You have 4 paralegals doing things 4 different ways because you're only using 10% of the software because you didn't pay an outside vendor or an inside person to build the workflows. What's a workflow? Is it a workflow system? No, a workflow is technology automating that system for you, so that they have no choice but to pop up the task that comes next, right?
Correct.
But $300,000 later, I learned that lesson, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a variation of it's very complex and also very easy to run a law firm. It's such a dichotomy because if you just do the fundamentals, which a lot of people struggle with, you're ahead of so many people. And then really getting from that 80% to that 100% is really where I think you're talking about. And that's really where you see massive differences, but many people just don't even have the basic fundamentals, which I think can really move the needle for so many. And, it is complex to manage lawyers. I don't want to take away from this conversation. That's not hard
Right.
because it's very complex to manage lawyers. The personalities, they can be very difficult to manage. Lawyers are a particular group. And the other complexity of a law firm, which I run into time and time again, is lawyers can steal your business. I mean, that's one of the challenges that everyone that owns a law firm deals with is that, you could walk in tomorrow and somebody tries to take 70 of your files. I had somebody last month that they had a coup in their firm. And if you don't think a coup is a real thing, I've
Yeah,
seen
it
it
is.
time and time again. You get to a certain revenue level, you're disconnected from your business, and you have a couple people come in and they try to steal your entire law firm. And I've seen this time and time again. It's almost like you should expect it at a certain level. And so how do you coup-proof your firm? That's something you need to be thinking about if you
Right.
have a certain size firm. And
Right.
unfortunately, I saw somebody last month, they had 9 people leave and try to steal their entire firm. So this is not I don't want to make it out like it's just so simple because people that have been around in the game like you for a long time, you've had to go through years that were difficult. There's years that you have certain things going on in the firm that most people would shut the firm down, if they had to deal with some of the things.
Yeah,
I mean,
listen, that's just one, for instance, you're talking about. The other complexity is the bigger you get, the more systemization you have to put in place for risk mitigation, right? The number of people that have law firms that have been defrauded internally is staggering. And so a big topic among masterminds that I'm sitting in right now is risk mitigation because more than half of those rooms have been defrauded, some to the tune of
wow.
$1 million, $1 million.
Oh,
And
that's interesting.
it's just as rampant as the other side of what you're talking about. So if you want to know the next thing that's about to hit our circuit is who's building out risk mitigation systems. Because if you don't have them, you are ripe for the picking for the fraudsters. And they're out there and it's pandemic.
So let me ask you, when you say fraud mitigation, that could be a very broad topic. Is there a specific type of fraud people should be looking for?
Yes. So personal injury firms, expense fraud,
Oh,
fraudulent disbursements, fraudulent companies being created with then if you have somebody who's got
oh
authority at
my gosh.
$3,000, they're putting in invoices for $24.99. Or somebody I know who had somebody in charge of HR who decided every 2 weeks she was going to gift herself 40 hours of PTO and then cash it in.
Okay, so this is a real thing for sure. I ran into it in my firm. There was somebody that tried to create a shell company, some fake company. Let's just say they named it MRI, blah, 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 ABC. And then they'll put that in as a vendor for the client. And let's say the client's clueless, doesn't
Medical
realize
records.
it. Then it's a medical, it's $1,000. And then they put it in and then they submit a payment, right? And your bookkeeping
Yeah.
service may or may not catch it that this is not a real vendor. And if you're moving at warp speed, this is an easy thing for somebody who's very sophisticated to pull off. And you're now in trouble with the bar.
It's rampant. It's rampant. So, yeah, I mean, again, it comes down to the stuff that you're coaching people on, which is systems, the bare minimum to have financial controls in place, right? Through your bank, right? It's simple enough. Add a couple of things at the elementary level of positive pay and reverse positive pay, right?
Absolutely.
That still may not catch certain things, but like a certain politician adjacent Elon Musk said, you can always reduce fraud, but you can't get it to zero. Right now,
Yeah, your goal is to mitigate
right.
as much as you can and be responsible. And if you had to defend yourself to the bar, you're very able to do so because you've had systems in place. At the end of the day, I started hosting this mindset call monthly for entrepreneurs and legal professionals that own law firms. And so much of what we focus on in that is just trying to get people to think about their business differently. Like the mindset component is so critical. And, you don't want to be paranoid because then you'll be risk adverse, but you also don't want to be neglectful. And there's a fine line between that.
100%. And it's funny because I think that if I think of you, like that's your superpower. I learned so much from you about, the stuff you talk about with mindset is super interesting to me. And I watch the moves you make and I'm like, man, this is a fearless. And even if you're not fearless, maybe fearless is not the right word, but you're brave because you do it whether or not you feel fear. And I know the moves you're making have to embody some element of fear. Like you sit down and you go, okay, I've been through massive change in 3 years. I went from my own island at ATL to Sweet James. Now I have a quote unquote boss, partner, whatever, to I'm walking away from private practice of law and I'm doing what my highest calling is, which is coaching, right? That takes incredible emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and self-belief that you don't know how things are going to turn out, but you'll be okay anyway, right?
I'm going to tell you, it's not without tears. It's not without questioning yourself. It's not without doubt. I try to show behind the scenes of I always try to follow my inner voice and my inner guidance, which I think a lot of people are disconnected from.
I agree.
And the hardest thing is when your voice is telling you something that's inconvenient, this relationship isn't really working for me, or I can't stay married to this person, or this isn't really my passion anymore. What I'm doing isn't making me feel alive. And I think it's the listening to the voice. Everyone has that voice, but reconnecting to that voice and then being willing to bank on yourself and your ability to pivot. I think your security does not come from money in the bank. It comes from your ability to handle whatever life throws at you.
Yeah.
And your confidence in your ability that if I follow this voice, I'm going to land on my feet no matter what. And everything that's happening to me is happening for me, not to me. So if I think about Jen in 2019, you own a firm, to Jen in 2026, that I have a consulting business and I've sold my firm. If I would have known what I would have had to do to get from this to this, okay, this is my dream. I actually had a dream. I wanted to sell my firm. And in 2016, I went to my first business coaching seminar in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I found that stuff when I was packing up my law firm. I found all the materials.
That's wild.
And the materials, the first session I ever went to, call this crazy. It said, how to sell your law firm. Now that's odd that I went to that. And I found my writings and I had a note that said, one day you will sell your law firm and here's how. And there's only 4 ways to sell your law firm or kind of unwind your firm. Sale to something like I did, which is unusual, more especially in 2016.
Right.
Sale to some type of partner where you unwind it over a number of years, close it down, or I think there was one other option, but they weren't easy options, And in 2016, I literally wrote this. So think about the power of somebody putting that in your mind. Somebody told me in 2016, you could one day sell your firm. And then you show up in 2026, but the path, if you knew how you're going to have to go there and all the mountains you're going to have to climb, you might not want to do it. it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it because your inner voice, I believe it, is not telling you these things for no reason.
Right. It's your guide if you listen to it. I'm a big believer in that myself. I think that what you said was actually on point, which is sometimes it's inconvenient, right? You're like, I got
Oh,
this gut feeling and now it means I got to do something. The difference is I take that and I go, look, your gut's never been wrong before. And it's only when you've gone against your gut that things don't work out the way you want. And sometimes going with your gut, even if it's inconvenient, will work out in a much better way. Right. So, your intentionality defines you, where there are people that are running from stuff. Pain, trauma, whatever it is, your moves that I've observed, and I don't know you that well, but from what I've observed and in our conversations, both online and offline, you're always running toward something. There's an intentionality to knowing the voice, listening to the voice, and saying, I'm doing X. And no, it's not going to be easy. And it's going to involve pain and tears. And you're very public about it. I think the first podcast we talked about your divorce, right? Like how painful that was and how publicly you were about it. But listening to your voice was the intentionality was
I
there.
can't. It's like I have a problem where like I can't live unless it's like in integrity with who I am. And it's really
Alignment, right?
inconvenient.
It's that alignment.
It's painful. It's hard to live this way because you're constantly having to detach from your identity. Like your identity is controlling so much. One time I was a married person. One time I owned this firm. One time
Right.
you're too attached to who you are today to ever evolve to who you could become tomorrow.
Right.
And that's the painful part, is constantly detaching and not being locked in to this identity you've created for yourself that probably is too small for who you're going to grow into. And can I give you another thing? Let's stop limiting ourselves. I think the first thing that I did, which was I allowed myself to be a consultant and a law firm owner. So like I was allowed to be two things. And I think so many of us are like, I'm just a lawyer. That's it.
Right.
I said to somebody the other day, you got a PI firm and you're passionate about sports. Why haven't you ever thought of maybe owning a sports agency? Like, why do you have to be one thing?
Right.
Like, we're so obsessed with we can only be one thing that we're multidimensional people. Look at you. You've got a podcast.
Right.
Like, there's many people, they want to have a podcast, but they're like, but I own a law firm. How do I do that?
Right. Look, I'll tell you, I mean, in a way, when you were in your original role as a law firm owner, or even at your next role where you were a partner in a bigger firm, you could impact lives, right? And you could impact lives, but limited in scale to the extent that you can impact your direct clients through better
Or
service.
my team or
Right.
whatever.
But now you can impact exponentially more people because you get to impact the firm owners that can then grow and scale their practices to handle more clients and impact their clients below them.
So it's really funny now. I have a bunch of my clients in like a Slack or like a text, and they're all building like a community, right?
Right.
And they all like are similar minded, and seeing them become a community has been, something. There's things that are going to happen when you step into your greatness that are not even in your current thought process, right? So like last night, they were all sending pictures of their like headshots before they coach with me and after. And they were like making jokes about it, like what we look like before Jen and like after Jen.
That's so funny.
And it's like really, it's so endearing and funny. And they'll say like Jenisms because like I say some same things all the time. So now like they have like jokes of like, you are a brand.
Right. But I mean, look, what you're doing though is you're opening up what's possible to them, right? No, I'm being serious because I don't know. Look, I forget how old you are, but I'm a lot older than you. But like when you speak, some of the stuff, if people are listening, is so deeply resonates, right, with what's possible. Now you're talking to somebody like I'm an old dog, right? Like I was like, I'm never going to be a partner with anybody and I am an island unto myself. And you were like, you challenged me publicly. What if that no longer serves you? And I have repeated that to people after talking to you. so much because the limiting beliefs that people have are insane. Like, are you open to
Yes.
a different version, right? And I am at this point. Like, I'm exploring options that I would have
I
never
can tell.
imagined.
I can tell you're kind of open to the possibility because you realize the future's changing so rapidly and you're
100%.
going to the events, you're seeing the writing on the wall. And what if there's something so much bigger and greater for you that you're foreclosing?
Yeah, that brings even more enjoyment where, again, you hit it on the head though, too, is that, you believe that if you're aligned, you'll be okay. I believe the
Okay.
same thing, right? So if I listen to my voice and I know my skill set, I am self-aware about who I am, my strengths, my weaknesses, my blind spots, I'll be fine no matter what, right?
So, like, think about this. When I let go of my office, there's always something, right, that like you hang on to. And I had this like irrational thought, like, I have to have my law office. So, like, my whole mental state was like, the only thing I was stressed about was losing my office because I had an office at a conference room, a big office for many years. And my identity was tied up. And even I worked remote many days, but just knowing, like, you're probably in your office right now,
Right,
right?
right, right, right.
Just like there's an emotional attachment. And so I just said, okay, I'm going to build myself a kick-ass home office. So I went and basically remodeled my home and like built this. I'm in my home office now.
Right, right.
But I have this like amazing sick home office. When I had worked from home, I had this small office. I don't know. You have to realize you're having irrational thoughts. Anytime your identity is going to change, you're going to have irrational thoughts that you have to detach from. And you have to realize, like, in 30 days, you're probably not going to be thinking, when I let go of that office and I just completely detached from it, I don't even think about that office now.
Right,
I actually think, why was I so attached to that?
right.
Do you ever have an experience like this? Like,
Yes.
you're like
Well,
a dog on a bone about something, and then you let it go, and you're like,
but do you know what that is, Jen? You know what that is, right? That's your ego, right? Ego, any kind of change like you're talking about feels like death to your
death.
ego. And when you say detach, what you have to do is keep your ego detached. So like the old me, I'm in the middle of negotiating something with my COO. Him and I are negotiating together with somebody else. And I've done very little talking. And as I'm watching this unfold, everything's falling into place as the realizations are coming through that I'm not negotiating any of this. I know that it has to go a certain way. And if it doesn't, I can walk away. It'll be fine. But detaching from desired outcomes or what you thought, like, I can imagine the emotionality you went through in packing up your office, but now looking at the joy you have sitting in your home office, your proximity to your family, and you don't have.
Now I see that office as a burden. Now
I
I
was
think
just going to say,
I
you
could
don't have
be
the anchor of $20,000
I don't
a
have
month
to
in rent.
deal with that. And I was almost to the point where like I'm like, I got to get another office to do consulting. No, I don't. I don't
Right.
need that right now. But like you get kind of like stuck and fixed on these things that you think you need, and you have to give yourself the space to like be open to
Yes.
maybe that's not serving you anymore. Maybe you don't need that anymore. And
Yeah.
then whatever you let go of, like letting go of that office gave me freedom.
Right.
So now I'm completely untethered. I could be doing this call in Paris and I don't have to be. When you have an office, you kind of feel like I got to use it,
Right.
you
I got
know?
to be there. I got to be at the office. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So it's a gift, it's polarity. There's something underneath. If you detach, you also gain. And
Yeah.
that's the thing I'm trying to encourage people. And just to be honest, like most people I talk to, it's kind of a back and forth. I think it's very important to be committed to something and to become an expert. And like you're at your office, you're locked in. I'm not saying for everybody this makes sense, but I do think with the nature of personal injury right now, with the market, if you can have another side hustle or a side business or something, I don't think that's a terrible thing. And, I know a lot of people, they're opening up another practice area or there's a lot of things happening to personal injury that, mark my words, in 10 years, if you were to look at this, if you and me are betting, is personal injury the same in 10 years?
It's not going to be the same in 1 year. It's not going to be the same in 1 year or 2 years. And that's all I'm I'm thinking about where, look, I'm the king of redefining myself, right? Like my wife says, the one superpower you have is you reinvent yourself more than anybody I know, and you will always end up a level or two higher than you were, because I refuse to be in a box of this is how I define myself. Right? Like I can learn from you. You were the one person when I was at that AI era thing down in Charleston that I couldn't wait to speak to, not because of money or business or the mindset stuff, right? Like I am 100% believe that you are where you are and have achieved what you have because of the work you do on yourself. And you will be okay. Not only you can be okay, you're already booming in Evergreen and talking about scaling it, right? How do you provide same service at scale so you can help more people, right? So, I'm a big fan of yours, and anything I can do to help, like I'll be referring people to you like I do to some of the other consultants that I know that really care about the clients. And there's a lot of gurus in this space, but I know you and you come from a place of purity and knowledge and you've done the thing, right? You have done the thing and a lot of them haven't. So for me, that's important. And I do appreciate you coming on again. I love having you on as a guest, and anytime you want to come on and promote anything, let me know. And when the book is coming out, let me know. I'd be happy to pre-read it for you because I'm sure you got a book in the works.
It. Oh my gosh. Now I'm just like, what do I want to do? There's so many things I feel so creatively inspired to do. And I think the true sign of an entrepreneur is somebody who can not only grow one business, but do it again in a totally another business. So that's my
right.
new
Now you're on your
thing.
third, man. You're a serial entrepreneur. So,
but always love to see and connect with you. I love the podcast, and hopefully I'll see you at an event very soon.
I'm sure. Listen, Jen, thanks so much. You were awesome.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Go anywhere podcasts are distributed. Follow us. Leave us a 10-star review. Share some episodes with your friends. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of law can scale without losing its heart. If you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals, check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you.